I always listen to Gary Vee
Yes.
when he would say things like, if you're, you don't know if you're whether you should post something or not, just post it.
Yeah.
And I am a firm believer that that is 100% true, because if you don't set your mind to, okay, I got to do this right now,
Yeah.
or do it tomorrow or whatever, schedule something, you're never going to get it done.
Welcome back to the Corner Talks podcast. I have my good friend here.
How's it going, man? Happy to be back.
No, it shouldn't be about anything. Like, this is one life.
Yep, one life? Like, fucking do it.
My guy.
But she just got it. She totally understood it.
20 years old when I started just watching a lot of movies.
And it tells a story. I want to tell a story.
Talented visual artist and educator, Stefano Bove. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
Daniel, I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing phenomenal. Thank you so much for asking. Stefano, the reason why I have a big smile on my face is I'm honored to have you back on the podcast. You were one of my first guests that took a chance on me when I initiated this creative venture. And I'm so happy to be back here. I think it's almost or over 2 years later.
Has it been that long?
It's been, yeah, I think it was just the end of 2020 when I started it. With my friend. I had headphones. I was sitting on like that couch back there. I was using like my laptop webcam. The quality was definitely not as good as it is now. We're always looking for ways to improve as creatives, as they say, but definitely have seen, the fruits of it in the 2 years, mostly on the fact that I've been able to enlighten and educate creatives, provide insight from other creatives like yourself on their journeys and experiences. So it's really, truly a pleasure to be speaking with you again.
Thank you. And I have been following obviously your podcast since the very beginning, and I was excited to have the conversation with you 2 years ago. I'm more excited to have the conversation today, and yeah, we've been growing together really
100%.
in the last few years.
100%, yes, and we've been keeping in touch. I've noticed again your remarkable work, which we'll discuss more of it on this podcast, because like I said before, there's been notable progress for both of our careers since our last conversation, and it's admirable to see that you're continuing to grow with your relentless dedication towards the arts, right? And like I've introduced you on the podcast, you're an educator, and so much has changed, right? In 2 years. I'm sure you were always educating people, but now this is kind of like the forefront, as you were explaining to me before the podcast, of your career, something that you're narrowing in, you're focusing. And I think that's so noble, so uplifting to hear, because that's something I aspire to as a filmmaker one day, when I'm more established, when I have that credibility to my name, to create an institution or some sort of safe space, maybe be at this podcast, if you will, that creatives can come on unknown and famous and share their experiences. Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I've always been the type of artist that, and I think a lot of people are similar, where they can talk up a storm about somebody else, but they, are very timid about talking about their own work.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of artists are like that. I myself am definitely like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I actually take a lot of pride in showcasing other people's work, and it's uplifting for me to say that I've helped a lot of artists grow and showcase for their first time, second time, whatever the case is. But definitely it has branched off in both of my artistic careers, which is my own visual art career and my first reviews career as a film critic.
Yes.
And they're not so different when you think about them, because I am here talking about and showcasing other people's work, whether it's
100%
art or film.
Yep. And that's what I've noticed. I'm so happy you've identified your own patterns within your career professionally. For myself, every time I speak, I was having a conversation the other day, and I was in an opportune situation where they were asking me about who I am and, what's my why and why I started my career and things like that. And the gentleman identified, you're a storyteller. Like, everything you like, your hobbies, your passion, the whole reason why you started this business, 94 Productions, everything ties into that. You know what I mean? Like, my artworks that I've sketched over the pandemic, for instance, something as little as that, all ties into my love of storytelling from a different medium, right? Anime. So yeah, definitely. It all comes back to what your deepest desires. You know what I mean, like your passions in life. And I'm so happy. I'm so privileged to be able to explore them, as I'm sure you are, right? Because so many of us either don't have the chance, the opportunity, maybe the circumstance. Um, and for sometimes, let's be honest, there are people that are just suffering with a lot of self-esteem issues. Those ones for me hit hard because I know what it's like, to be fearful of putting your stuff out there, to maybe be judged by family to pursue your dreams. But at the same time, like you have to go for it, especially if you are in a privileged circumstance, like we are. If you have an internet connection, if you're living in a first world country, there should be no one stopping you, especially if in your 20s, like that's your stomping ground, as I always say. Like this is the time to make mistakes, get hurt, and get back up. God knows I've been through it,
Yeah.
so I just got to say that.
Yeah. I started off, I mean, this is like dating me, but I'm not in my 20s. I'm in my 30s now.
Right.
And when I started off saying, when I told myself I am going to make the jump, and finally pursue my artistic career, that predated like our social media boom. That was now over what? That was like 8 years ago or something like that.
You're
Like
saying
Instagram.
yeah, when
Yeah.
you made the decision to pursue the arts, you're saying you didn't even have, it's not like you could go on Instagram and start posting your artworks. Like,
Instagram wasn't, none of the social media platforms when I said I was going to make the jump
right,
were the business designed social media platforms that they are today.
right,
Instagram was only take a picture and post it. There were no stories, there was no promotion, there was no swipe up to check out my website and all of that stuff.
additional
The
features.
business model of social media didn't exist.
Right.
So as an artist to grow, it was still a very much so word of mouth.
Yeah.
Now I would say word of mouth is about 60%, 70%, and then the other 30% is social media, which definitely helps.
Yes.
Exposure, meeting other people, meeting other artists, meeting other like-minded individuals. When I go out and I do like live painting or live painting events or art battles or whatever the case
Right.
is, I'm meeting people and I'm constantly exposing myself to new audiences, and that's because of social media, right?
Well, yeah. Well, what I admire a lot about yourself, and actually I take inspiration for this, because I like to relate to my guests, is you're not just looking at social media at face value and just saying, okay, I'm going to post my artworks. Because there's a lot of artists that's do that does that. Let's say, right? You have a creative approach where you do artworks, you do commissions, you go to, like you said, art battles. You're an educator. It's finding ways to create content and get your name, your brand known in the industry. And the reason why I'm speaking about this is I'm harkening it back to myself, my own experiences as a filmmaker. It was very challenging, as we know, with films and filmmaking itself, to constantly make films for the sake of content, right? Like it's not fathomable. It's just something that I can't do, because by the time I assemble a crew and everything like that, I just can't be making a film every month.
Of
I've done
course.
it I've done it in other aspects, but as I grow as a storyteller, like in order to make a quality piece of film, like with dialogue and actors, right? You can only do it for so long where you're making it out on your iPhone, right? But what I'm saying is that this is the creative approach where I started to say, how can I best put out content consistently, right? At the rate of, let's say, Stefano. And this is how the podcast was born, right? It's like having conversations, again, going back to storytelling, because this is all a story, right? When you're about to
That's
start
right.
speaking, you're unfolding your story, who you are, what your experiences have been like, and how they've changed you to make you the person you are today. That to me is captivating. That inspires people, right? And that brings them back to me. And me is the filmmaker, the director, the guy that has the dream, the guy that wants to carve his own path. So it all goes back, like, full circle. And it's something that we should definitely, as all creatives, like look at as an advantage, right? This is what I mean by, like, if you're in those privileged circumstances, first world country, internet connection, such like that, take advantage of it, put yourself out there. I know it's going to be daunting, but it's worth it in the end, because there's someone out there, if you're truly talented, that will recognize it and give you a positive sense of feedback.
Yeah, I agree with with everything you said, and
Right.
I do. I if you have some sort of creative passion and you are shy or timid, or don't want to show your work to anybody, putting it on social media for the most part is very positive.
Hmm.
At least my experience,
For sure.
most people are pretty positive with seeing work. motivating. At least Instagram and Facebook, for the most part, are very positive platforms where you'll get a lot of inspiration, and it'll help you grow.
Yeah, a lot of like-minded individuals for sure. But something I want to add as well is I'm a firm believer is, get it over with, as in put yourself out there, see where it ends up. If you get the feedback, like give it a year, what I'm saying, right? Give it 2 years. And if you're not getting the sense of feedback from your outside of your community, right? It's very important that your high school friends aren't the only ones commenting. You have to really see if you have a shot at this. Then you can assess, right, the longevity of this career. But to just say, oh, like they won't like it and not post anything, because I'm not kidding you, Steph. Like there's so many artists I've come across in my journey, whether it was a potential collab, a follow, this like that, didn't work out for the sole reason of they just didn't want to put their work out. And I'm saying you don't even have anything to start. Like there's
Yeah.
nothing. And I'm like, how do you even know? Like for me, I have a good judgment of where I am, where my place in the market, in the industry. But I would have never have known that if I didn't put out my first film or my first post. You know what I mean? So you gotta start somewhere. You gotta put it out there. And I'm only speaking to those that know in their hearts they're not doing something they love, that have that creative itch, and you want to scratch it.
Yeah. I plan my weeks in a certain way,
Awesome.
especially dealing with so many different types of work.
Of course, yeah.
Whether I'm live painting somewhere, or I'm writing a film review for a movie that I'm giving a screener for. So having so many different jobs, you have to balance them accordingly. And when it comes to what you are promoting on social media or not, or what you're posting on social media, it definitely comes with like I always listen to Gary Vee
Yes.
when he would say things like, if you don't know if you're whether you should post something or not, just post it.
Yeah.
And I am a firm believer that that is 100% true, because if you don't set your mind to, okay, I got to do this right now,
Yeah.
or do it tomorrow, or whatever, schedule something, you're never going to get it done. And a perfect example of that is our First Reviews podcast, which we
Right.
just recently started just last month.
Nice.
And that podcast was something that myself and the team have been discussing for months now. and it was always, guys, let's, we've been talking about this, we got to get it done, we got to get it started. And it's not until you get the ball rolling that you dip your feet in it, and then it's like, oh, actually this is something that we're going to be doing consistently. And we knew from the beginning that it would be something consistent, but it just took all of us to finally set a date to say, hey guys, let's
Right.
film an episode, let's get this done. And it was, and since then we've been filming an episode consistently every 2 weeks. But
Nice.
it took months to film
Yeah.
that first episode.
Yeah.
And that's just procrastination on
Yeah.
my part, on everyone else's part, to finally say, let's just do it.
Yeah. No, procrastination is a killer. And I'm so happy that you guys committed yourselves, because what a valuable piece of content. Like I didn't even think of that for First Reviews. I thought you guys were doing it yourselves already. But yes, get it out there, get that content out there, just to hear a back and forth conversation about how your perceptions on the film and critiques. People love to hear that. That's actually funny enough. I'm glad you brought it up. How I educated myself in film. I didn't go to film school, so YouTube what was my destination. Not so much for tutorials, but a lot of film reviewers like Chris Stuckman, FlickPick, Nostalgia Critic. And they made it entertaining and fun. Red Letter Media, I should mention as well, but they also made it insightful and educational. I actually learned a lot through their criticism, how to make a strong, compelling story, because then I start reflecting on, why do I like a certain movie, right? Why is it resounding? Why does the public like it, So I'm looking forward to that piece of content. I'm looking forward to seeing it. And I'm so proud of you guys for committing
Thank you,
to
thank you.
putting, yeah,
Myself
yeah.
as well.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. I'm really happy, and I know you're a very ambitious individual, so it's no surprise there. And speaking of all these projects, you've been developing. I'm curious, what other projects have you been developing or been recently commissioned?
So my main focus right now, on my personal artistic side,
Mhm.
is mostly gallery shows.
Okay.
Working on my own. Finally, after a few years, I haven't done my own solo show in a while. I'm putting together my own solo show, which most likely will be towards the end of 2023.
Right.
And my other artistic side is curating other gallery shows, which I do a quarterly gallery show. Actually, the last quarter was the first one, and the call for submission just finished for the second one, which is the Vaughan Film Festival Creative Bubble. Their creative space, and rotating artwork every quarter. So and we're mostly going to be doing photography shows, and
Right.
the second show, which will be the work will be going up in the next week or so.
Yes.
It is black and white photography.
Love that.
Yeah, so
Awesome.
that's my current one, and there will be a show there every quarter, ongoing, and working with the studios at Assembly Park as well, doing painting nights and gallery shows,
Nice.
and doing my own paint nights and my own gallery shows. Just basically, that's where my artistic career has gone in the last few years.
Right. Instead of doing your own kind of like, I'm sure you still do your own artworks, but you're saying instead of primarily focusing on that, you're now extending it to how do I help other creatives,
Exactly.
and yeah, and expand my brand in another usage. Yeah, I love that. I love that idea. How has these new creative ventures, these endeavors, benefited your career? How have you find that?
It has benefited my career in a few ways, not necessarily like monetary,
Right.
because I'm not selling my own work,
Hmm.
but it it has allowed me to connect with basically the whole artistic community, and now putting on photography shows as well. I'm now meeting a whole new set of artists, which are photographers,
Awesome.
and still doing visual art gallery shows. I've been doing those consistently for the last at least 1 to 2 a year for the last 5 or 6 years. So my inner circle of artists is fairly large.
Mm,
I know a lot of artists. I've met a ton of artists. I've collaborated with a lot of artists over the years,
that's awesome.
whether it's with murals, whether it's with gallery shows, whatever the case is. Um, I've I'm proud. I'm proud that I've made like I have a massive network of artists from different genres and different subject matters in art all over the city.
That's great. Yeah. And this is what I mean by like how much you've inspired me, right? It's you're not just looking at, okay, I'm gonna do a piece of artwork and post it, right? Or hope to hope to God someone sees it, or I might DM someone. It's, going to these events, creating this hub where you're able to explore networking, right? Like this is why I do the podcast. It's the amount of filmmakers and creatives I've met and then actually collaborated with, and they've been involved in some of my projects. I still have existing friendships with them to this day, has been endless. And, I owe it to, taking that chance, that risk, like to going outside of my primary focus, my primary passion. And I love that for yourself. It's like, instead of just being at home, doing artworks, listening to music, you're out there, right? You're at the art battles, which is a great venue. You're at the galleries, you're curating events. So that's great. And that should be very inspiring to any other visual artist looking to enhance their career.
Yeah, one other aspect of myself
Yes.
that I've wanted to really enhance over the last few years is my communication skills, and
Right.
podcasting, writing, critically writing for reviews, film reviews, being at events, social gatherings,
Yes.
gallery shows, art battles, whatever the case is, curating my own events, meeting tons of people every single day, every single week, helped me personally connect with people, has helped develop my social skills. And I know that's where a lot of artists lack, because of the fact that they're very to themselves, very connected to their work,
Of
and
course.
I've always felt that there's always been a disconnect between
Yes.
artists and the general public. You
Hmm.
can walk into a gallery and you see a painting,
Yeah.
and you are supposed to figure out, based on the description, what it is that the artist was feeling, without maybe not even seeing it. If you don't go on an opening night of a gallery show, you're not necessarily connecting with that artist. So there's always been that disconnect, and myself being at opening nights because I'm curating the shows and meeting other artists, I'm also able to describe other artists' work because I have to know the pieces.
Of course.
So it has helped me better myself and my communication skills, choosing this particular path.
That's awesome. And I love that you said that, because I haven't been to a gallery in a long time, but oftentimes the artist isn't there, or you have to find them. And the connection with the work and the artist is a huge facet, right? Like, you look at film, right? Imagine if there was no director to promote it, right? Like, imagine Tarantino not existing. For me, that would be a huge void, because you got these great piece of work and there's no one to match it with. Like, I wouldn't know anything about the person. So it kind of like adds more value to know the artist behind it, and providing that human interaction. Is that what you were getting on?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Awesome. Yeah. So no, that's something highly valuable. A lot of people can take from it. But steering away now from the positives, and all the benefits that these new explorations have granted you, I want to know now, like, from the challenges. Are you noticing any challenges yourself as a entrepreneur, an artist, and how have you overcome them while pursuing your craft?
Challenges as an artist. Well, COVID definitely posed a big strain on the gallery industry, and
Right.
now things are finally starting to come back over the last 6 months to a year. But a lot of artists had to figure out ways to sell work on their own, display work on their own. Like, even during COVID, I did like online gallery shows, and I still did it. I still did gallery shows with other artists, with like
That's
15
awesome,
to
man.
20 artists, and
Yeah.
did a virtual gallery. And these are all things that, like, so technology is obviously both helping and hindering the artistic development with, like, AI and
Yeah. Don't get me
now.
started.
So
Yeah.
that's a whole other
Like,
topic.
I've never been a fan, not to crap on anyone's like career, but like, digital art is great and all, but I'm more fond of the individuals like yourself that can create something with their hands.
Yeah, exactly. I've
Because
always
it's
liked
native,
working
you know
with
what I
my
mean? Yeah,
hands.
like that's authentic. That's like human, the human touch, right? It's just like
Yeah,
an editing
exactly.
program that edits a movie. Like, do you want an editing program, or do you want a human being behind it that edit it together, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, all art forms, you will always have that. It's almost like it's never enough
of course.
feeling. So you have to personally overcome that,
Right.
and be content with what you have. Never really, look at another artist or whoever and say, I want that, and I'm, be jealous of that person.
Yes.
So I'm content with the artistic career that I've created as a, commission artist, um, as a live painting artist, as an educator. I'm content with what I've created out of my career, because it almost, in some ways, you almost can't even control it, how
Yeah,
things
it's
how
true.
things happen.
Hmm.
It's no different than being a filmmaker. You make a piece of filmmaking, a film, a short
Yeah,
film, and then uh someone picks it up, and now you're making a feature, and then someone else asks you to make something else, and you're almost like getting tugged and pulled, and your career is being almost dictated by other people. whether
of
you
course.
choose whether you choose to, direct or produce that film is totally up to you, but the options that you're given are almost not your decision in some cases,
Yeah, no.
at least starting off.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. I know exactly what you mean, man. You have the idea, you have the creative fortitude to pursue it, but then you're met with the obstacles. Some may say that they're more realistic, right? In the sense of, like, you got money, you got producers, you got a lot of people that you have to answer to. Um, from my experience with that, it's you just have to surround yourself with the right individuals. It's harder said than done. I'm proud of myself that over the years I've kind of established a network, but it's still challenging, man. Like, I've been around people that just don't really share the same insights, same mindset, and it bogs me down. And a lot of projects have fallen through, either because of that or because of their own dilemmas. So, like, you really have to it's starting to be apparent why, like, you have Scorsese, like Shoemaker, I think that's her name, the Thelma Schoonmaker, the editor for all his films. Like, she's been doing it for like 40 years. when you're a kid and you're looking up like your favorite filmmakers and you see like the consistent editor, you say to yourself, oh, like, she must have been at a good rate, or maybe she just
Mhm.
understands him. And then you start to realize, no, I think it's a more of a personal level. Like, not only is she talented, but they get each other. Like,
Yeah,
I hear how
yeah,
this woman
it's true.
works. Like, she understands Scorsese's vision. Like, he doesn't have to sit with her and like, he'll sit in, supervise, whatever. And I'm sure he's like part of the whole process through and through. But it's more like they get each other. So when I see that, I know it's possible. Like cinematographers, I don't know the names, but or music composers like Hans Zimmer, like working with Christopher Nolan repeatedly, they just understand each other's vision. So I see myself one day, cultivating that network where the critical players, if I, director photography, if he understands my directing abilities, my flow, my style of storytelling, because everyone's style of storytelling is different, then I'm going to go with it. Because the hardest part as a aspiring upcoming filmmaker, right, to establish themselves, is being misunderstood. You're only going to become known and famous or revered for what you do once that person that's critical enough, or the market says, we get this guy. But until then, you're always trying to figure out what works and how to make it work.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. When it comes to creative teams, you do notice that a lot in the film industry, but even in all art
In all
forms,
art forms, yeah, for sure.
people like to work with who they know will collaborate well with them, and who has a similar vision. The vision is important, and
Hmm.
you do notice it in more in the faster paced cinema world, like the MCU,
Yes.
where you don't necessarily have. I actually would use the DC EU as a better example,
Right.
because they've actually, at least from what we've been told, they
Yes.
seem to have had more creative differences on screen, in particular films, where they've had to change directors, change producers, change this, change that
Yes.
all the time,
Hmm.
consistently. At least in the MCU, the only one that I can remember is Ant-Man, when they changed directors from Edgar Wright.
Yeah, I remember
Uh,
that.
right, Edgar Wright
Huge
had
controversy when that happened.
yeah, he's a big Ant-Man fan. He wanted
Yeah.
the film done a certain way. He wrote a script.
Yeah.
But I think Marvel has started to allow that creative freedom to flow a little bit more since then,
Look at Taika
because
Waititi. Like, not to interject, but I just want to mention this. Like,
yeah,
they had to revitalize Thor, the franchise, because after two, it was kind of getting a little bit mellow. And he comes in, does a stellar job, so much so that they contract him for the fourth one. Without, you know what I
yeah,
mean? And then some people will have their opinions on that. But yeah, just to add to your point, I wanted to mention
yeah.
him as a director. Yeah,
And even with like Chloe Zhao with
The
the
Eternals.
Eternals, right? She
Yeah,
came in, she pitched an Eternals film. They said, "We love it, let's do it," right?
yeah, yeah. No, for sure. And a lot of these filmmakers, you'll notice a pattern, right? Like, and this is something I need to understand, because I've been in situations, I don't know if you know, but like, there was an opportunity presented to me to direct a $2 million project, and I was denied it because I don't have a feature film under my belt.
Mm,
So for me, what I'm saying is, this is what I mean by, until you make that mark, right? Until I make that first feature, and not even the first feature, like until I make that film that resonates, I think that's when the career takes off, right? And we see it with all our favorite filmmakers, all the people that have inspired us. They always say, like, when the studio liked it, or when it made a lot of money, that's when I knew I could start making my own stories, right? So
yeah,
I just, like, yeah, for me, like, I often like question that, like I reflect on when that moment will be, like, in terms of which stories I'll be able to tell, because I've written already 4 feature length screenplays, and so much so I had to pivot, because those are passion projects, like I want to direct, but I'm always thinking in my head, like, which is the first one I get to actually like direct if I have that opportunity, right? Because you got to be ready.
yeah,
Someone comes up to you, right, and says, "Yo, like, this guy's short films are amazing. Like, he's looking to expand. He's looking for funding. Like, what else do you got on the table, right? You got to be got to have a script
exactly.
available, right? You can't just be like, give me a month, I'm just going to write a 90-page script. It's like, no, I want to see something now. So I've written those scripts, because I really wanted to tell those stories, like, they're passion projects since I was 17. But I also want to be prepared, right, for that
Exactly.
opportunity when it arrives. Yeah. So we were touching on earlier about creative teams, and more specifically, this new creative enterprise you've established called First Reviews, and it's with a close friend, James, I believe.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, and I've had the lovely opportunity of meeting him. A great guy, very savvy with the industry, knows his stuff. And it's generated a remarkable following in the movie going and filmmaking community, I have to say. What has your experience been developing a brand focused more in the entertainment industry rather than the visual arts?
So it again, like my artistic career, it has evolved on its own, but
Got it.
it has evolved in a based on aspects of the industry that I enjoy. One is writing. I enjoy writing.
Yes.
Personal reasons, and that developed into critiquing films.
Hmm.
And I've always been passionate about interviews. For some reason, I've always enjoyed watching interviews,
Yes.
cultivating interviews, coming up with my own questions. So the interview aspect of first reviews is something that I've been really pushing myself over the last couple of years.
Okay.
And that is growing as well. I was fortunate enough to interview the Daniels last year for Everything Everywhere All at Once, and
Oh, that's amazing.
I didn't even know at the time. Like, I knew it was a massive interview when I watched
Right.
the film. I was asked by Elevation Pictures if I wanted to screen the film. The movie did not hit theaters for another couple of weeks
Really? Wow.
at the
This is
time.
because of first reviews, like they saw your presence on social media?
Yeah. Well,
Wow.
since first reviews, we've developed a lot of partnerships with either production companies or PR firms. So we do get a lot of screeners. A lot, like we get early access to Netflix.
Wow.
So if you pay attention to when our reviews come out, you actually
Right.
notice that the reviews actually do come out earlier than the films hit. So
Wow.
we'll get
Okay.
early access
Yeah, that makes
to
sense.
Disney. We had Disney Plus, early Netflix, early, a lot of local Toronto and Canadian production companies like VVS Films and Elevation Pictures.
Amazing.
And we do work with a lot of other PR firms as well, which work with different production companies. So
Wow.
sometimes it's kind of random, like, hey, we have this film. Do you want to screen it? Maybe there's a possibility for an interview. It all depends, really.
Right.
So at the time, this is I watched Everything Everywhere All at Once. I screened it
Yeah.
like 2 weeks before the movie came out,
Okay.
and I knew that this movie was going to be huge.
You had an intuition.
I just felt it. I'm like,
Yeah.
this movie's amazing.
Yeah.
And I pushed so hard for an interview, and I got that interview
Oh, that's
with the
amazing, man.
Daniels.
Wow.
And I knew it was going to be huge at the time, but now looking back at it, that was like one of the biggest things I did in 2022. And it keeps getting bigger. Like, if these guys, these guys are winning awards now. So
Well, they got the most Oscar
know,
nominations at the Academy this year, right? I think
exactly. They have
11. They racked in
11.
11. So like, who would have known, right? As you said, like you knew it was gonna be a hit, but you never know
Yeah.
how much traction it would get. Yeah.
And that's always my go-to thought process when asked if I want to watch a movie, if I want to screen a movie, if I want to potentially interview any cast or crew. I always walk in with that benefit of the doubt, but at the
Right.
same time, these are artists, these are creators, and the way a visual artist is and a photographer is trying to get their work out there. I look at it like that in the filmmaking perspective. I'm doing my part to help this indie film potentially see a new audience and use
Yeah.
my platform to spread that awareness for that film. And I've done that. I've done that for short films, indie films. We also promote the local festivals like the Vaughan Film Festival that do
Yes.
that do
Seen
short
that.
films.
Yep.
So we are kind of very spread out between short, indie, and big blockbusters. We're kind of spread out
That's
along that.
amazing. Yeah.
But yeah,
The same model, the same model you described for first reviews is exactly what I aspire to eventually execute with Corner Talks, right? It's to cover the little guy, right? The guy that's trying to make it, like the
yeah,
upcoming,
exactly.
right? The up and coming guy, and then there's the big guys, right? and I always imagine them having them in the same place, right? And me moderating the conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, very admirable, like for sure. First reviews, check it out. I enjoy that platform, that creative outlet, because it gives me an insight onto filmmakers I've never would have been able to see, right? Because blockbusters for the most part are well marketed, but you don't really know about the indies, right? Like people like me, right? And who's to say like I create a film that resonates with you guys, that gets put out there, not to plug myself, but I'm just saying is like that's how I think you guys structure. It's like a film that you identify with or that needs to get attention, right? It's a source for your community, and who knows where it would take that to go from there. Correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so first reviews, home of a lot of movie reviews and television, anything media, I should say.
Yeah,
And
we do a lot of television now as well.
awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so seeing you're an avid fan of the superhero genre and the influence they have on your creative projects, because I noticed a lot of artworks derived from them. What are your thoughts on legendary filmmakers like Martin Scorsese deeming Marvel movies not worthy enough to be called cinema?
I don't think you can not call them cinema.
Okay.
That's because I would never look at a painting and then say that's not art.
Right.
Right. There are different ways to express yourself. There are because then how do you judge a short film, and then versus
Sure.
a feature, right? Those are technically two opposite ends of the spectrum. Is it budget that you're talking about? Is it what is it that you're saying that is not cinema? Is it the production, the fast-paced environment of the production? Is it the that it's not? I can see it from his perspective where he knows he has full control,
Yeah.
and on a big Marvel production, you don't necessarily have all the control.
No.
You're a director. You're brought into this production as a director, and the wheel has already been turning for 2 years on this movie.
You're not an auteur, like you're the guy they hired, right? You
Yeah,
applied to the job,
exactly.
they paid you extremely amount of money.
You're
This isn't
handed the
something,
script.
yeah.
You're
This
handed
isn't
the
something
script. You said,
personal, yeah.
here's the script. It's
Yeah.
been written already.
Yeah.
Your job is to just direct it. Now, obviously, there are some some variations to that. Not Marvel, I feel like over at least the last few years, have steered away in that direction. With like Sam Raimi writing, directing, his own movie, and Taika Waititi giving his own style. So I think creatively they've reverted a little bit more backwards in their style, probably just due to the fact that they've just now obviously have so much money that they're able to open up their production company and allow more time for these films to be done. But
Right.
I think there was a certain point in the Marvel era where the ball was just rolling so quickly that you would just throw a director in there and tell them to do this film in a year, less than a year, and then get out. And then you have nothing, and you have no involvement with the pre-production, you have no involvement with the post-production,
No.
and you're out.
Because you have to make like it becomes a automated business where like there's needs to be met either with directors, like the board of directors, I should say, like stakeholders or the public. When you have a slate of movies scheduled for all these dates, you got to fill them up, right? You don't have someone that's like me, let's say, that's coming in and saying, like, let me think about this. Like, how is this character? It's like, no, like this is the script. Let's go. My interpretation with this quote is as harsh as it is, I can understand where Scorsese's coming from. The way I look at it is he's identifying cinema as movies that explore the human condition. Now, some might argue, well, these films, have heart to them, and there is an emotional core in some aspects, to a certain degree. For me personally, like right up until I think Endgame, and even just I'll even go as far as to say even before that. Yes, like Iron Man, Captain America, Winter Soldier, like those films, I would argue would explore the human condition. But films like Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, like that to me is like cinema as opposed to entertainment. It's a very hard, exactly that. It's very hard to pinpoint what is cinema and what isn't. But from the context of Martin Scorsese and seeing his masterful filmography of over 40, 50 years. I can understand, you look at a movie like Taxi Driver, and it's like that's how he sees cinema, right? It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
what goes on with human beings, how they interpret the world, how they perceive the world. And that's why, like, I get goosebumps even thinking about like Iron Man, right? Like the first Iron Man, again, it's not popcorn entertainment for me. It's, a man that created something that was catastrophic, and how did he overcome that, right? But it explores like all these issues. Like it was just recently registered into the National Film Registry for how remarkable it was. So there is a way in which to do a superhero movie, like Joker, right? Joker to
Yeah,
me is
exactly.
not, you know what I mean? Popcorn entertainment. Joker to me is a film about mental health and the disturbing effects it can have on society, slapped with the Joker brand on it. You know what I mean? Like
Of
that's
course.
like the human
Yep.
condition. Like even the Batman that came out with Matthew Reeves' portrayal of like how he conveyed that world. I enjoy films maybe because I am a filmmaker, so I take it more personal, that there's like one man kind of behind there, or like maybe a core small team. Um, Marvel has become like, I think bigger than what initially anticipated. To the point where I'll be honest with you, Steph, like I'll watch films and look now, and it's just like they're great and all, they're impactful, but they're not the same. They don't hit as hard. Like second Black Panther, amazing. Wakanda Forever, I love the themes, the reoccurring themes of oppression and racism and things like that. But the first one for me, the fact that Michael B. Jordan, what he did with the villain, and the fact that they tied in slavery on African Americans with Wakanda, like they had those thought provoking messages. That to me was like, it could be argued as that cinema, right? But to kind of just say like, it's all cinema just because it's released in theaters, it's a bit of a stretch, right? So I understand for sure both sides of the spectrum, but that those are my opinions for sure as a director, how one could perceive it. Tarantino, my boy, my hero, that guy has been also had opinions about the movie industry. Quite notably, I've been reading cinema speculation on cinema. Great book, phenomenal insight on all the movies that inspired him, and all the takeaways he got from each one over the years that made him the person that he is today. I want to know from you, like when he says the current era of movies are the worst ever, do you believe with Quentin Tarantino on that notion?
So I I do agree, only because we are in an era of a never-ending consumption of content.
Yes.
And
I can't keep up.
There's no keeping up.
Yeah.
Just so let's a few years ago, we had you would have a movie, let's say pre-Marvel, you had 10 blockbusters a year. So like one a month, not even one a month.
Right.
Now you have multiple blockbusters a month, and you're overshadowing all of the indie films that come out. And on top of all of that, you also have a streaming service platform content weekly. All of these IPs are constantly coming out week to week. So on any given week now, you have a movie in theaters on Friday, probably 1 to 2. Then you have more of a indie limited release film,
right,
that never gets talked about. Also on the Thursday or Friday. So you have at least 2 to 3 movies coming out every single week, one of them being a blockbuster of some sort. Then you have content coming out on Disney Plus on Wednesday, content coming out on HBO Max on Sunday, content coming out on Netflix on Thursdays and Fridays, almost every single day of the week. That's not even counting digital cable content. If you watch like a digital cable show like a Cop Show or NCIS or Grey's Anatomy,
right, yeah,
all
no,
that
for
stuff,
sure.
right? That's not even counting any of that.
No.
The scripted television shows. That's just like Netflix movie, Disney Plus movie, HBO Max TV show. Like there's so much content now, and you watch a show, you consume it, and you watch the next thing, and you don't even have enough time to process it. And as a film critic now, it's so overwhelming that you have to watch a movie and you have to immediately like start writing stuff down, and because you have to immediately jump to the next piece of content and if you consume too much content before writing those reviews, now you don't even know where you are, and everything gets discombobulated together. So it's very important as a film critic to make your notes and write your critique without consuming any other content, because everything gets just lost.
Yeah, man. With the litany of content, I don't know if it's just maybe because I'm a creator myself now, so I just want to do my own thing and my mind's somewhere else half the time. But when I do have the time to sit down, a lot of the times I'm watching a show based on word of mouth because that's very powerful, something that's popular, or the IP itself. You know, the intellectual property that I identify with, like The Last of Us. I've been watching quite recently. You know, it's just to pick up a show, everyone's like, yo, you gotta watch Ozark, and I'm sure I do, you know what I mean? But it's like to the inclination to watch it, it's just not there for some reason, like um on a number of things. But like you said, there's just such a myriad of different works out there that how do you distinguish? Like how do you stand out? That's something that I really contemplate as an artist. You know, I kind of wrestle with is when I make my films and you know have them released and distributed. I guess it comes back to you know Gary Vee, someone we both admire. Like he says, the market will decide, and that's how I kind of suppress that that worry, because it's the reality, man. It's like no matter how much you market it, distribute it, the market will tell you if it's good. You know, like a perfect example is you know you're giving example with Everything Everywhere All at Once. You didn't know how big it was going to be. Well, you hope to be that big based on your first watch. For me, it was John Wick. You know, when I worked at Entertainment One, you know, that was a sleeper hit. And I was like, yo, this is going to be huge, but didn't have the budget to market it, didn't have the reach. So it was huge for Lionsgate, a huge asset for their line of movies being released. They had no idea where it was going to take them. They're at movie number 4 now, coming this year.
Yeah.
So it's just like that's what I mean is you could do all the power in the world you want, right? Like Valerian was a project I worked on. We spent a shit ton of money, millions of dollars, right? No one's ever heard of it ever again, right? It was released, didn't last a month, got pulled from theaters. But they spent all the money in the world on it. Market will decide ultimately on its success. So yeah, I think that's something that we kind of just have to accept with this, you know, numerous selection of content. It really just comes down to what our tastes are, you know, what we enjoy, how strong the IP is too, right? Like Squid Game 2, like, is that going to be good? Who knows? Let's hope it is, right? But yeah, I love that your perceptions on that. You know, there's not a negative view. It's kind of like take it as you will. Like if there's something you enjoy, watch it. But I like that you said it doesn't really compromise the industry or anything like that. For me, I think it's just a matter of that's what quality is. If everything was quality, then the word wouldn't exist. You know what I mean? Like there's certain things that come out that surprise people, like the Batman I'll bring up.
Yeah.
When I had no hope for that, I said, why are we doing another Batman? And you watch it and you're just like, wow, that's like an auteur. That's like someone that came in and said, this is the vision for Batman. Don't talk to me, studio. Let me do my thing. And amazing, right? It just shows you. Now it doesn't always work, right? Like that. Like what was it, Schumacher that did Joel Schumacher that did Batman and Robin, right? It doesn't always work that way if you give it
That's right.
all, the entire right, the entire responsibility. But what I'm saying, when it hits, it hits. And that's what I'm saying is what I'm counting on for myself. It's like when it hits, it's gonna hit. Especially if I know what I'm doing. So that's awesome, man. And as artists who continue their craft to advance at their craft, sorry, I'll repeat that again. As artists continue to advance at their craft and use the progress to elevate their careers, we often struggle with the notion of what's next. You know what I mean? And do you notice there are frequent times when you're wondering when you'll obtain your next creative inspiration or achieve a certain level of success in your career?
No.
No? Okay. Good.
No. I mentioned earlier that I kind of just go with the flow for the most part. And I do find that I wouldn't even say opportunity is given to me,
Right.
because I am hungry and I do go out there and I do search for it.
Yes.
I do search for opportunity, but I also create opportunity. I look for areas, especially, you know, locally, in the art scene, and I've created my own uh, areas of improvement for the art scene, and areas
Yes.
that I think that they could improve in terms of like artistic exposure. So I'm constantly growing and adapting. And I also as go with the flow in most cases,
Right.
and I allow opportunity to come my way because I've put myself out there.
Mhm.
So again, like a filmmaker waiting for a phone call, or putting a film out there, or submitting a film to a production company and waiting for that call.
Yeah.
For most cases, that's how my um, creative route is. But I have also created opportunity for myself. So,
Yes.
um, so yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the law of attraction, man. That's amazing. What it is you pursued what was nearest and dearest to your heart, was something I was discussing at the beginning of the podcast, and everything around you, your environment, the people you work with, they are attracted to that, right? The universe, I believe in that, will find you and bring you those opportunities. That's what's worked for me, right? Like, as you know, give some background context. Stefano and I have known each other a while back. One of my first jobs, I worked with Stefano, and I believe I was talking to you. I don't know if I was as open and passionate about film with you, but I remember brushing on the subject a few times, but I was never in it like I am now. And ever since I invested myself fully and stopped playing games and dabbled with it, and just really committed myself to the craft, the world's really opened up to me. And I've met remarkable people from all different facets of the industry, because I'm trying to build this multimedia empire. And I'm really grateful, truly. Like, it's been a ride. It's been tough. There's been a lot of like letdowns as much as there's been positives, but that's the nature of the business, as someone like yourself would tell me. And I just kind of got to keep with it. Remember why I started. I think that's a lot of artists, what they
Exactly.
need to,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of artists need to go back to that. And that's with anything that you do, right? Like going to the gym, or like this podcast, for instance. You always have to go back to, why did you do it in the first place? And if it's based on vanity, or superficial um, aspects, then you need to drop it immediately. But if it's something that's near and dear to your heart, then keep going, because it'll fulfill you. That's a big thing that I've been seeking, right? Is fulfillment. Too many of us just feel satisfied, and it's like, I want to do something where it's like, I'm damn proud of myself. Like, I paved my way, I did my thing, and I feel, a sense of fulfillment. I feel like I've conquered. Even if it didn't maybe pan out the way I wanted to, at least I said I tried for it, right? I did for it. Because too many of us will often be told, hey, like, did you at least try, right? So I proudly say, like, I went for it, and I continue to go for it. So I'm really happy, like, we kind of share same mindset on that.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
me, yeah, for me, like, what's next is I that's just me, because maybe I'm impatient, but I'm just curious, like, what's next for me. I'm always like thinking about the next project while I'm working on the current project. But I like your approach. I'm gonna learn from that, just kind
One
of
one
like take it
thought
in stride.
process that I have
Yes.
in all aspects of my business
Right.
is I'm very much so a firm believer of, if you don't ask, nothing will ever be presented to you, or you won't get what you don't ask for. And I will get at least one thing if I send at least 10 emails.
Yes. Yeah.
If I don't send any of those emails, I'm not getting a damn thing.
And a no response is better than nothing at all, right? Like, some people
Yeah.
feel rejected by the idea of no, but it's like, hey, they read your email, they saw it, they know your name.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Hey, and
So
maybe not this time, but maybe
maybe
next
not this time, but that's a big thing. I'll discuss with you off the podcast, but that's a big thing. Like, putting your name in the system, as they say, like, putting your name out there. Now they know who Stefano Bove is, or Daniel Calderon is, and that's a huge advantage compared to the next person who doesn't even submit, or doesn't even have that connection to that person, right? So it's all about perception, right? Like, understanding where you are, being grateful for that. And yeah, for sure, definitely owe it to you. You've been nothing but generous in extending any help that you can give me,
Of course.
as someone at my level, right? And I look forward to providing you and sending you more of my work, and seeing more of your work as well. So I really appreciate you taking this time to return to the podcast and discuss and update us on everything exciting you've been doing.
I'm happy to be back on.
Yeah.
It was a great time. It's always a great time with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stefan. I really appreciate you doing this.
No
Thank you,
problem. Thank you,
everybody
Dan.
else. Yeah. Thank you, everybody else, for listening, and we'll talk soon.